Welcome to today's session. In today's session, we are going to talk about JSF form validation. Now, JSF have some built-in validation tags to check the user inputs. Suppose you want to validate the value that is entered by the user meets a specific standard, then you can use these built-in tags. Let me show you an example. Now, if you see in this form, I have added some validation tags to the user interface component. The first one is the first text box is for the name field. Now I have added a validation to check whether the user have entered a value for the name column. So the user cannot leave the name column empty. If the user enters a name column empty, you can see there is a validation error displayed by the system. Value is required. And the second, for the second text box, that is for the password, I have added two validations. One is to check the pattern of the password. The password should begin with alphabet. It should be either a small letter or it should be a capital letter. Other than that, it will not accept any other letters. So if you give any other value, you can see there is a validation error printed. Similarly, I'm also checking the length of the password. The minimum length of the password here is 6. So if you give less than 6, you can see there is a validation error displayed. Similarly, for salary column, the minimum range, the allowed range of value is from 1000 to 2000. So if you give beyond the range or less than the range, you can see the validation error is displayed. And for age, similarly, the age should be between 18 to 30. So it accepts only values within this range. Anything which is less or beyond will give you a validation error. Okay, so if you want to check for validations, then there are two ways. One, you can write validation in the bean, or you can also write validation in the JSF form. So let's see what are the validation tags available in JSF tag. In another session, we will discuss about bean validation. Now coming back to the tags, these are the JSF validation tags. So these are the validation tags. So validateLength is to check whether a particular input satisfies a particular length. And if you want to check a numerical value is in particular range, then we will use validateLongRange. To check a particular double is in particular range, we will be using validateDoubleRange. To check whether an input follows a pattern, we use validate regular expression. To check whether a user interface component has the value, we have to use validate required. And finally, we have custom validator tags. Now these tags you can use in your JSF form to validate the user input. Now when we're talking about validate regular expression, these are the characters we will use to check whether the input follows a particular pattern. The dot character represent any character. Okay, so if you want to check, so here for example, W dot, so any character can come in the second position, but the beginning should be W. The second character can be any character, then it should end with KYL. That is the meaning of this one. Then the caret symbol indicates the beginning. So if you want to check any pattern begins with WHERE, then you can use caret symbol. If you want to check for a particular set, whether your pattern includes any character from a set of alphabets, so or a set of numbers, so it can be given within the square bracket like 0 to 9. If you have a pattern with either or, so here you can see either your pattern should begin with HI or it should begin with by. It should be high or by. So or, then you can use the symbol. And you want to check whether your pattern has more than one occurrences of a particular letters. Like for example, here you have me plus. So it means that your pattern, the input pattern can have more than one occurrences of ME. If you want to represent 0 or more occurrences, then you give it as star. And if you have exact number of occurrences, then you will give it within curly brackets. So here you can see the L can appear 4 times. And if you have any special characters, then you can give a backslash. And if you want to indicate anything as ends with or something, then you can use $sign. So here you can see the pattern ends with bar. Okay, so these are the symbols we will use to check for a particular pattern. Okay, now let's directly go and do an example program. So let me open a new project. So let me call it as validation example. So let me delete the HTML file. We are going to create a HTML file. So let me open a JSF page. Let me call this page as index. Okay, so I'm going to create a form. I'll just create a panel grid. Okay, the first one, I'll create a label called as name field. Okay, now what validator, let me add the input text box. Okay, now you have to close your input text box separately. Okay, so within this input text box, you have to write what are the validations that is required. Okay, so let me write the validation. I need validation F colon validate required. So it means the user cannot leave this empty. So the input text box cannot be empty. So this is the first validation I'm going to add. The second validation for this one I'm going to add is validate length. Okay, so I'm going to add validate length. So what should be the minimum number of length should be specified by the user for the name column. Okay, so minimum you have to enter 6 characters. Okay, maximum you have to enter 10 characters in the name column. So this is the validation. So I can add any number of validations inside this input text box. So you have to close your input text box separately after adding all the validation. Let me add the next column. Okay, the next column is the password. Okay, so here I'm going to use input secret for the password. Now I have to close it separately. Now inside this, I'm going to check whether my password follows a particular pattern. So I will use validate regular expression. Okay, so here you have a tag called as validate regular expression. Okay, here you have to give the pattern. Now pattern it should begin with, okay, caret symbol. Then you can have a character set, because my password can be anything about characters like A to Z, or I can use a or symbol and write it can also be small letter A to Z. Okay, now this I will give it in the bracket. Okay, so this is a pattern. So for this one I think slash is not required. we'll just give a star, so it means more than one occurrences can be there. Okay, and here you can give dollar. Okay, so this is beginning, this is end, and this is a set. So set of alphabets can be there, and the star indicates any number of combinations can appear. Okay, so this is about the pattern. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Suppose I want to check whether my password also has minimum length of 6 characters, then I will use F colon validate length. So here I give minimum. So minimum your password should be 6 characters. Okay, maximum your password can be 14 characters. Okay, whatever you want. The next column I'm going to add is salary column. Okay, so value is equal to salary. Okay, so salary is double. Okay, so the type of salary is double, so I'm going to use the validation F colon validate double range. Okay, so here you have to specify what should be the minimum salary. Minimum salary is 1500 reals, and the maximum salary I can give it as 3000 reals. Okay, so you can specify the salary. Okay, the next column I'm going to create is output label name equal to, value equal to age. Okay, age is numeric type, so for validation I will use F colon validate long range. So here also I can specify what should be your minimum age. Minimum age is 18 and the maximum age is 23. Okay, so we finished all the validation tags here. Now let me add a button. So command button value is equal to login. Type is equal to submit. So finish with the button. Okay, now I'm going to create a bean, because once I submit I want to move to the next page. If all the validations are satisfied, I want to move to the next page. So I will be creating a bean. So right click new, I'll create a CDI bean. I'll call the name of the bean as user, and I can give any package where you want to create your bean, and this is to change the scope. So here I will select the scope as session scope. Now here let me declare the attributes private string name, private string password, private string, sorry, I have a double salary, private int age. Okay, now all are private, so I have to include the insert code, getter and setter for all these attributes. Now I will be talking about one more validation tag. Suppose here I want to check whether age is, you have to enter a value for the age. So if you want to enter a value for the age, then you have to add validation in the form. Suppose I want to add the validation in the bean. So I will just add an annotation at not null. Okay. So if you want to check whether an attribute value is entered or not, you have two ways. One, you can add a validation in the form, or you can add the validation in the bean. Okay, so you know what validation you have to add in the form. See, here you have a validation called as f colon validate required. Okay, so this validation tag will make sure you enter a value in that particular user interface component. Either you can add it like this, or you can add an annotation in the bean at not null annotation. Okay, just click and add the import. You have to add the import for not null. Okay, I'm sorry. At not null, n also is capital. Okay, just click and add the import. Okay, so we have added a validation for the age. So you have to enter a value for the age. If you don't enter a value, it will show you a error. Okay, so you are adding a annotation in the bean. Now, here in the JSF form, you have to indicate that you have added a validation in the bean. So in the age, here you can write f colon. So here you can write f colon validate bean. Okay, so when it sees this tag, it automatically, the control goes to the bean to validate the age. Okay, so it checks for the minimum range, whether the minimum range is 18 to 23, plus it also checks whether the value is entered in the age column, because here you are given f colon validate bean. So the validation will be now transferred, the control will be transferred to the bean to check for the validation. Okay, now we will write one method in the bean to move to the next page. So just I will add one method in the bean. Okay, I'll create a success page. The next page, let me call the page name as success. Okay, so now I'll go to the button and right here in the action column, just I call the name of the method specified in my bean, user dot, this is the name of the method, go login. Okay, and you have to map all these input text with the bean. So here I'll write value equal to, just map it with the bean, user dot. Okay, similarly hash user dot, I map it with password, and this input here I forgot to create the input text box. Input text, okay, value equal to hash user dot salary. Okay, you have to close it, the end. Okay, here also for age also I forgot to create the input box. Okay, so let me create the input box. Okay. Yes, we finished creating all. Now let's run the code. Yes, we got the output. Now I'm going to enter the name column empty. See, when the name column is empty, it gives you the validation error. The value is required. And password minimum length is 6. Again, salary. The expected range is from 1500 to 3000. So name also should be minimum 6 length, password also should be minimum 6 length, and salary should be in this range, age is in this range. So you can see the validation error here. Now name column, I'm going to enter the value correctly. Okay, password should be in a specific pattern. So here I'm giving numbers. Okay, and salary column, you can see I'm going to give the salary as 1000. Okay, age, I'm going to give the correct value, or I'm going to leave it empty. Okay, and then when I click login, you can see age cannot be empty. So it's telling must not be null. So here the validation is from the bean. For age, we wrote the validation in the bean for not null. Okay, and you can see password, the regular expression pattern is not matched. I gave numbers. You can enter only characters. And the salary, here you can see the range should be 1500 and between 1500 and 3000. So the range is not satisfied. So let me give all right values now. Okay, salary I will give it as 2000. Age I will give it as 22. Okay, now all values are right. So when I give login, okay, fine. Now there is error in the success page. Let's see. Yeah, the page name here is SUCCESS, and in the bean, I think the spelling is wrong. Sorry, the page I created a small letter S, and here I've given capital letter S. So let me change it to small s. Okay. Now save it and run again. Okay, so let me enter all values right. Salary, I will give it as 1600. Age, I will give it as 22. Now login. Okay, what is this error? I will rerun my. Oh, when I rerun my program, I got the output. So it goes to the next page. In next page, we did not display anything, just we displayed hello from Facelets. So you can see when the user input is right, it moves to the next page. When there is any error, you can see the validation errors are printed. Thank you for listening. Hope you understood the session. If you have any doubts, we will discuss in the comment section. Thank you.